Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everybody. How are you today? It's actually sunny today in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, thankfully. Once in a while, we get some good weather. So my name is Jackie Schwabe, and I am the reluctant ringmaster from the Caregiving Circus. And we have been working on the 6-part series of the 6 stages to a meaningful journey, but we were really, really lucky today and were able to snatch up a really fun, important guest. Our friend, AJ Bryant from Soul Conservation is an already published author of the book, The Revocation. And she is joining us to talk about another book that she has coming up that talks a lot about the art of self-care, which is something many of us have also talked about throughout our time on the channel. So we've asked AJ if she'd please come join us to give us some tips and tricks on how to be healthier, self-healthier caregivers so that we can be the best us we can be. So AJ, welcome to the Caregiving Circus. How are you today?
Well, thank you. I'm doing really well. I'm lacking in caffeine today, but we're still doing it.
Oh, I am not. I think I'm like 6 cups in, but don't tell anybody because they'll be like, what? So AJ, you and I met through fun circumstances. I always love meeting really bright people online. So we met online, and we were both kind of talking about some of the things that we did. And I asked if you would please grace me with your presence to come visit us on our show. But you were telling us a little bit about, like, just even how you became a writer. Because if I recall, weren't you, like, terrified of learning to read when you were a little kid?
Oh, my goodness. So I have an older brother, and he had all of these Boxcar children books. He had, like, probably 30 of them. And I was completely and totally convinced that when I got to kindergarten, the teacher was going to make me I would have to read those Boxcar books. And I was terrified. It's like, I can't read those. There's not even pictures. Oh, I worked myself into a tizzy. And, not thinking, not thinking about the fact that he's in 3rd grade and I was in kindergarten. So I was just really resistant to start reading. And then I remember going to the library with my class in school and just being able to pick out my own books that were not Boxcar books. And that was when I really got started loving to read. I remember in 3rd grade, I got my first big chapter book. I think it was the Emerald City of Oz, something like that, the sequel to The Wizard of Oz. And I laid down, and after supper, I laid down on the couch and started reading. And I think I read till probably almost 11:30 when my mom started getting ready for bed, and she found me. And she was shocked because she thought I was already in bed. And that was when...
Oh, darn, you got caught reading.
I know. And it got to the point, it was awful. I was smuggling flashlights to bed and was reading till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. I was literally just talking to my nephew who lives with us last night, and he's a big reader. I'm a reader. My brother's a big reader, and his mom's not a big reader. And so he used to sneak these books up to his room and he would read, and he would actually get in trouble for reading too much. I thought, wow, that's like the weirdest thing in the world to ever get in trouble for. Like, you read too much, you learn too much, but we still have to sleep, right? That's part of our self-care.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, sleep is good.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So then you talked about the Emerald City and sneaking in and watching, reading stuff in the bed with a flashlight. But I think you said your love affair with words kind of blossomed when, like middle school maybe? Some kind of competition? Is that what you were?
Right. In middle school, I really started trying to tell stories. I started, this awful cheesy book. And, it was terrible. And I got probably about 45 pages in. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed writing it. And then I got to be a part of this really cool project where we got to play with NASA telescopes and do we were taking radiation measurements of Jupiter and its moons and like the surrounding stars. And there, at the end of that project, they opened it up as an essay contest, like, you know, what did you learn? What was the most impactful thing? And you know what? I can do this. And so I submitted an entry, and I ended up winning. And I got to do it was awesome. We got to do a all expense trip paid to California, and I got to go actually be in those telescopes and look at the complex and everything out there. And I'm like, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. It was
that's amazing. What a wonderful relationship with words. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a word nerd, self-professed.
Yeah, I am. So completely unrelated, but sort of the power of words scenario. One of my 4 children is autistic, and one of the things that's a big struggle for her is finding that she could have power from her words, right? And so she didn't learn to talk till a little later in life. But it's so fascinating to me now and I'm a word nerd too. I love to read. I love to write. But seeing someone like my daughter really blossom into the person that she is just by finding that source of power, that words
right.
could change things for you. They could move giant adults to your whim, right? Go get you chocolate milk just by using this powerful. I have power. Yeah, the 4-year-old got it a little earlier than the 6-year-old, but once she figured it out, it was like, hey, I got chocolate milk. Let's do this. So I think finding that, like, you found that power like really, really young, but it seemed like, I think you like kind of went into a different career path though, didn't you? Weren't you a correctional officer for some time?
I did.
Like in that path.
So after I graduated with my degree in communications and then a minor in like youth and family ministry. I moved down to San Antonio, and I found another twisted pleasure. I worked in nonprofit fundraising for about 1.5 years. So colleges, zoos, stuff like that. And then life happened. I ended up getting a divorce and moving back home to Colorado. And my dad was a cop. He was a lifer. He did, I think, 28 years on patrol. My brother was a cop. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not joining the family business. And for about 6 months, I couldn't get anything. I was temping. I was really just trying to do anything I could to take care of my 2 boys. When I moved home in August of 2011, I had a 4-week-old and a 2-year-old.
Oh my Lord.
And it was an adventure. And I remember that first Christmas, I had $20 for Christmas money, and I went to the thrift store and I bought them books and a backpack, and that was it. That was my wad, and just trying to do the best that you can with what you had. And I applied for a job with the local sheriff's office as a dispatcher because I'm like, no, I can do this. I'm not worried.
Right, that's not police work. I'll be okay, right?
Right. And I ended up getting a different job that came open sooner in the jail, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And then after about 1 year of working in control in the jail, so running all the cameras, doors, etc., I was watching all these officers. I'm like, you know what? That's a $500 pay raise. I could do that for $500 more.
Right, exactly.
And the most important thing to me was really being able to take care of my kids without having to depend on any child support, because at that time it was really unreliable, and so I didn't want to base my budget around whether or not I received child support that month. And so after being an officer for almost 4 years, 3.5, my caregiving experience started. I was in a car accident on my way into work, and I shattered and dislocated my hip. And my fiance and I had been we'd been trying to like coordinate schedules, and he was working a really scheduling challenging job. So we were coming to the point where we knew somebody had to have a normal schedule, because I was working Braves at the time. And so we had been looking, but it was while I was in rehab and recovering, I was looking for a job for my sister-in-law, and found one in probation. And that's what I'm doing now. I've been working in probation for the past 3.5 years. And I specialize in domestic violence and trauma. So a massive...
That's meaningful work, though. It's meaningful work, for sure.
It is. It is. I love it. The vast majority of my clients, whether they're male or female, either grew up in an abusive household, or there was the lack of a positive male role model, or were abused themselves. And the mental health and the trauma in the criminal population affects statistically anywhere from 70 to 85% of the criminal population. And trying to, it's substantial. When you start breaking it down, all of my female clients have been either physically or sexually abused.
Oh, no.
And
there's a reason they're there, right? They didn't just like go, hey, let's go to jail. That sounds fun. That's not how it works, right? Oh, my. So is that what ignited your passion for, because I know you've written, your first book wasn't about self-care. It was kind of a legal thriller. The second one sounds very much more focused on kind of your healing side of you, maybe where on your probation side, where you're talking about the mental health of your clients. So is that right? How did that morph? How did you kind of go from the one place to the other?
Well, a couple different areas. When I was still working at the sheriff's office, there was a person that I had met, Lord, when I was probably 5, 6, because he was on my dad's crew, and so I remember, going out to eat with all of his crew and their families, and this person was a veteran, suffered from PTSD, and struggled with alcohol and sleeping, and he woke up in the middle of the night from a night terror, screamed at his wife to hide, and ran into the bathroom and shot himself.
Oh no!
And that was so pivotal to me, because, and then there's been multiple officers that have been either quit or fired because of self-care based, whether that was alcohol or fraternizing with inmates, divorce. It's unbelievable. And when I transitioned over into probation and was getting all this training for domestic violence and trauma and mental health and self-care, and so many resources are available to my criminal clients. And the more I delved into these resources, I'm like, normal people need these too.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And it's something that we forget. And so my husband, who is also an officer, we tell people we met at the jail while we were in jail.
That's awesome. Hey, it's a way more fun story, right? It's like, hey, yeah, we went to jail. It's good.
We met in jail.
Yeah, I love it.
we started Soul Conservation, and our tagline is helping professionals thrive under pressure.
Nice.
Because there's so many high stress jobs, whether it's caregiving, where you are constantly pouring yourself out for another, or law enforcement and emergency services, where you get to see, the horrible 1 to 4% of the population on a daily basis. There's or teaching or counseling, and these are the areas where we felt like self-care and successful practice of self-care was most desperately needed.
I love that. So I'm so happy that we got to, I didn't know all of this, so I'm excited. So one of my passions has been, and when our co-host Marty's on, similar for her, I became a family caregiver. I think I've always been one. My mom has had a lot of fun when she was younger, and so there was a lot of being an adult before you're ready sort of stuff going on. But then when my daughter was diagnosed with autism at the same, and I had 3 other children, my mom was in the hospital and almost didn't make it. Both my dads had a heart attack. It was just like this, all this stuff all happened at one time. And I built software. I built home care software, but I built software. I was not in the caring sciences of any way you could ever think of that at all. And I really, really struggled with, it wasn't even the amount of tasks. It was like, oh my gosh, I didn't take a shower. It's like been 4 days, or forgetting to eat and brush my teeth and breathe.
And shave your legs.
And shave your legs. Yeah, it's just like super weirdly simple things that my routine was so worked through and so solid when I lost my job. I got fired at the same time of all that was going on. And my routine was so worked around like my work schedule and my life having a schedule that when you added all that chaos in and you added all these people who needed help, and I'm a helper by nature, I got lost in there. Like period, like what I did, how I attributed value to myself, right? Because I was no longer working either. And my daughter needed so much more attention, and I found myself like overweight. I was 265 pounds, and not showering frequently, like all this stuff that we actually medically go out and get assistance for my daughter Zoe for things called ADLs, activities of daily living. And she was doing more of that than I was doing myself. And I was like, holy mother of potatoes. Like, this is really not a cool way to go. So I started diving. I started my company to help other family caregivers pretty much never have to go through what I went through. But I'm finding slowly, and it's not like, gosh, it's sad. It's like, I just gave a talk. I said, I literally feel like our country's at epidemic proportions of lack of self-care. It's literally making us all sick faster. And that's just general population. That's not even making the considerations that you did for helping professionals, paid caregivers, people in service, counseling, therapy. I mean, dealing with vets and PTSD and some of the more trauma. I'm just like, straight up the population is like not showering enough, I guess. We need to take baths more. That's what I said. That's my self-care advice. Take a bath.
Well, I think in our digital age, it is so hard. And I got so fed up with what I call the Pinterest level of self-care. Like, take a walk, stay hydrated. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm coming home with blood on my boots. Or I got screamed at by a client and, who was actively being abused while she's still going through, the courts for her own decisions. And, screaming at me that you don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to love somebody that's hurting you, or to not know whether or not you and your kids are going to be safe that night.
And you're like, yes, I do.
Yeah, I do. But you can't say that because you're the professional and you have to maintain those professional boundaries. And that's the concept of boundaries is something that in our Facebook world is non-existent. Everybody has access to everything, or conversely believes they have access to everything. And the concept of, limiting those and putting up boundaries. I'm a country girl, and when it comes to fences,
good fences make good neighbors, right?
Yeah, good fences make good neighbors. And so they have to be horse high, bull strong, and tick tight. Because horses will try to lean over the fence and lean into the fence to get whatever's on the other side of the fence. And so those are the boundary violators who may or may not be well-intentioned, but they're just going to lean on you until you do what they want. Then you have the bulls who are going to charge the fence and really don't care that there's a fence there. They're going to get through it. And those are the people who just have complete and total disregard for others' boundaries. They're just going to do it their way. And pig tight is pigs will do almost the same thing that horses will do, but they'll do it at the bottom. They will roll into the fence. So when you have 200 to 300 pounds of pig laying on your fence, you have to make sure that it's pulled. And so really when it comes to self-care, especially for the high-stress professions, those boundaries become absolutely vital. This is work, this is home, and what you discovered harshly, what you do is not who you are. And when we internalize our jobs and make them a part of our identity, instead of maintaining that boundary of this is my occupation. Yes, this may be a passion, and yes, this may be important to me, but this is an occupation. This is not.
It's not all of who I am.
Not my job.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think I saw this in real practice, and gosh, I wish I would have met you like a month ago or 2 months or 2 years ago, but we have a lot of ABA therapists that were in our home, right? So there's 5 to 6 people every day in our home, 1 to 5 hours, and their job is to guide Zoe through some of her ABA practices. But they're very low-paid employees, which I think is terrible because they saved her life. They're amazing. But they try to teach them at the corporate level that they need to maintain a professional distance, and for all of the reasons I suspect that you're disclosing or kind of sharing with us now. But the problem is they don't give any why, right? They just say, don't be friendly with the families.
Right.
Or, they're helping me with a 3-year-old, right? She's about the cutest thing you ever did see. Of course I want to hug her and tickle her and play with her. Finding a way to have that boundary is so hard, especially when they didn't describe to them what they needed to do. The longevity in that role is like most of them make it a semester and then they drop out. It's all about the boundaries, not having them or trying to enforce them when you didn't have them in the first place, or going to work and getting beat up and spit on and punched by some little cutie pie that you want to feel bad for, but you still got socked in the mouth, and trying to figure out how they can still they feel like they're giving back and feel good about themselves, but they're being like literally abused, like literally physically abused every day, and they have no coping mechanisms. They're not given those tools. They're not even given them the understanding of why they should have boundaries, first of all, but not given tools to know when you maybe you need maybe I'm gonna cheat and look. Maybe they needed a higher fence, right? Maybe they needed it tighter. They don't have any way to find a coping mechanism because it's not taught in that area. I mean, maybe it sounds like some cases you guys got some training on your side, but gosh, that's terrible.
Yes and no. And that was the other reason that Chris and I wanted to start this was because you get this training about resilience and everything, and it's maybe an hour, of 40 hours or 9 months worth of, the police academy. And it's like, you are going to have days that are bad. Just know that you're going to have bad days and it's going to be okay. Or, find someone you can talk to, or just really, Pinterest level self-care.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when...
It's very odd. You should read this book if you have any interest, but it's called The Body Keeps Score. It's actually the brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. And they talk about PTSD and the different 3 centers of the brain, the reptilian, mammalian, and then the frontal cortex, and how your body is, you're made perfect, right? I believe in God. So God made us perfect. And so he made our reptilian brain basically operate in 3 things. Q, I saw this thing, so I'm going to do B, a routine action or act, and I'm going to get C, a reward. Right. And so the problem is that when someone has been through trauma, they're actually broken at they've had something broken at the most embedded part of their brain, the most, the evolutionarily the oldest part of them, which only has a current state of presence. And so they can't see how that will impact later. And if someone doesn't guide them on that journey to break that cycle, they even can intellectually tell you, I don't want to drink every day. I don't want to beat my wife. Yet the trigger happens and they do it again. And it's literally not their fault. But no one wants to hear that, right? No one wants to hear it's not their fault. So how do you help?
What's interesting with that is from whenever trauma happens, say from 4 all the way up into your adult life, until that trigger is addressed, every time your brain encounters something that is similar to that, you will react at the age of emotional intelligence that you were when that incident first occurred.
Right? Because it's the present moment of the triggered time, which is the other thing, which is what you just said. Right? It's not like the present moment, like today I'm 40 and this thing that happened when I was 4. It's today I'm 40, it triggers, I'm 4. My brain doesn't know time. It knows sense, right? It knows one of my 6. Yeah, wow.
So you're going to throw a grand mal temper tantrum.
Yep.
And scream and want to hit and throw and everything else. And, you're 40 years old. You know better.
Yep. Intellectually, I certainly do. But at the time, people say I didn't even know. I couldn't control it. I didn't know what happened. It's just crazy.
Right.
So we're going to run out of time. We literally only have 1 minute and 47 seconds left. And we didn't even get to talk too much about your book. So in terms of the book, then, is it sort of your not so Pinteresty version of self-care that kind of gets to a little bit more meaty topics?
Yes, we are. There's going to be some basics. The first section is going to be basics on diet, sleep, and exercise, because those are really our building
fundamental.
Yeah. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to be following Asimov's levels of
hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of needs. There it is. Because if you look at the food, shelter, and water are our most basic self-cares. And if we are not doing those, then we can't get above anything else.
Right.
So spending some time focusing on those, and then we're going to move into boundaries and trauma and coping skills, recognizing what you're looking at, recognizing what your triggers are, because the way I explain to my clients is that the difference between having a response to a trigger and having a reaction is only about 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And so what can you do to give yourself those 10 seconds to make sure that you're having a response instead of, like we just talked about, a 4-year-old reaction to a trigger?
Yeah, wow.
And so,
we're gonna
leave.
So, do you have a website or anywhere that people can find you?
Yes, I am on Facebook under AJ Bryant, author, and I will be getting my WordPress blog and site up and running by the end of this month. So that will be also linked through the Facebook page. But as of right now, everything is being ran through AJ Bryant Author on Facebook.
All right. So our on-air time stopped, so we're no longer recording. And I'll shut this down in one moment. But if you would like, after this is downloaded and I send it to you, if you want to let us know when your blog's up and your other things are, we happily repost that so people can find your information. Okay?
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you again soon, AJ, and good luck with your book. I can't wait to see it.
All right. Well, thank you, and take care of yourself also, okay?
You too. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.